So this is something I do before every Monster Hunter game. I never want to feel like I've wasted any or valuable materials, so I always plan out what weapons I'm going to make. Most of the time I stick to it pretty well, but it's not like it's a strict ledger for me. I find until you get to the end game, you can drive yourself into a pretty deep hole if you make whatever weapons you have available, only to realize it costs insanely rare materials later, and unfortunately doesn't even end up being good. Since I'm doing this for myself, I figured I would share it with you all. Maybe you can find it useful too. Here's the catch. I do this veteran style. No math, no testing, just pure intuition knowing my own playstyle as a guide. If you want to know what the best weapons are, you'll have to find some other YouTuber because I won't sit here and calculate it out. I use a multi-approach system to determine what weapons I'm going to initially go for, as in the end I typically end up making everything anyway. First and foremost, look at attack and elemental values, followed by sharpness. I then take bonuses such as defense or affinity buffs into consideration, and finally ease of making the weapon, something no calculator can actually tell you. I never worry about weapon slots because I feel a good armor set should be able to be universally used with any weapon non-limiting. For status weapons it's even simpler, which has the highest status and sharpness. And for all you fashion hunters, move along and never pick a weapon based on looks. Function over fashion. Here's the disclaimer. Monster Hunter Generations isn't out yet, so I'm using Tyrannical database to do my shopping. That means that there may be some translation issues, as well as a lack of weapon tree information. I'm going to do my best to not include any DLC weapons or endgame ultimate weapons, created by tickets in every upgrade. I'm also going to exclude any rust weapons here. If you find a rust weapon, just make it. They're all amazing, but more importantly, they're based on luck of finding one, so it's really not right to put it on the list. My list contains 1 to 2 top picks for each element for each weapon type. I like to give myself a little flexibility in case I'm not having any luck with monster drops. I've also got a few honorable mentions of weapons that maybe didn't make the cut here, but are definitely worthy of crafting your first round through. So let's get into it. Crimson Rook is my first choice here, and let me explain why. Gunlances can be pretty complicated with their 3 different types of shots, and particularly how those shots affect sharpness more than other weapons. So that's something we really have to take a look at here. Crimson Rook does have significantly less sharpness than Dino Gunlance Banua. However, it has the long shot, which I'm actually preferential to because it extends the range of your gunlance damage significantly, especially with wyverns flying in the air. Also, when using it online, it's a lot less likely that you're going to actually hit a teammate with a long shot as compared to the wide shot. Now I know some of you may have different opinions on what type of shot is best for the gunlance, so I've put the weight in my deciding factor for the type of shot of gunlance near the bottom, right next to slots. When weapons are really close though, I'm probably going to go with the long shot because that's what I personally prefer, followed by normal and then wide. But if you choose something else, absolutely go with your playstyle. That's what it's all about here. My second choices have then got to be the Dino Gunlance Banua, simply because it's almost identical to Crimson Rook, and then of course the Agna Magma, which has really high fire. Great Demon Gunlance, a really good endgame weapon, has my top choice. It has one of the highest damages as well as thunder and really good sharpness. You're going to have to get rid of that negative affinity, but I definitely think it's worth it. Especially when my second choice is another Genogo weapon, which means you're going to be using a lot of different parts. Don't forget about Rainy either. It's got insanely high thunder as well as sharpness to handle all those shots. The Gombratrix is going to be my top pick. It has pretty decent attack as well as really high ice, and although its sharpness worries me, I think you can make a set that'll make this thing work. The Gombra Gun is going to be my second choice because its ice is even higher, although you suffer quite a bit of damage, but you do gain some of that back with your sharpness. Abyssal Fissure rules out in my mind here because it does have pretty decent attack as well as one of the highest water damages. Its sharpness is a little lacking, but you could always trade that out for one of my second choices. Mizuromi Rough and Assault Stormlance are my second choices, and they're pretty much tied. One gets more damage and one gets a little more defense, and their elements are about the same. However, Mizumori Rough does have quite a bit more sharpness as well as the long shot in one slot, so in my mind, that's my clear second or maybe even my first choice if it weren't so damn difficult to make. Chariot Gun and Doomlance Greed are my top 2 picks here. Both are going to be a little bit difficult to make, and both have really good stats. Although Chariot does lack a little bit in the sharpness, it does make up for that with a little more damage. Really, you have to pick this one based on your set and which ruby you can get first. While sure, Zavolta Demolisher does have better stats when really looking at Blast, don't be afraid to make the Dino Lance. It does have the long shot as well as significantly better sharpness and better attack. I'm really psyched that I finally get to pick a Najarala weapon as one of my top picks. There you go, V-Crest. Big Slugger packs the most poison here, but that sharpness is going to go away super quick, and it's also pretty difficult to reach with sharpness +2. You'll be able to get away with it in multiplayer as more of a support role, but I would focus more on Venomous Perfume or Shining Ishtar, as both are going to be great options for solo as well as multiplayer. with only one pathetic option for sleep Gunlances, I wouldn't waste the materials or especially the Zenny on this. There aren't many Gunlances with really high damage, and even fewer with high damage as well as really good sharpness. So I would go with Wyvern Gunlance. It's got really high attack at 240 and achievable white sharpness at a pretty decent chunk too. If you're not willing to fill armor slots for the sharpness +2, I would go with Orasarian Gunlance. It's got pretty decent attack still and definitely better sharpness, only requiring sharpness +1 to get that white.